Oh, that's fucking adorable. Welcome back to this week's edition of Oh, That's Fucking Adorable, where I tell real life stories about deals that had something go so crazy that it gave me that exact response. Oh, that's fucking adorable. This was going to be a wholesale transaction that happened in 2022. It came from an inbound lead from Speed to Lead. We hopped on the marketplace. We actually spent, I think, a couple $100 to buy this lead. It was in San Angelo, Texas. I went into Speed to Lead. I bought, somewhere in the range of 20 to 30 leads, kind of to stack the team with lead generation, lead flow. Here you go, boys. Go to town. And one of our acquisitions managers at the time locked up the deal for $45,000. It seemed like it was going to be a pretty straightforward wholesale transaction. We did the recon. We got pictures. We opened up title. While we were waiting on the title commitment to come back, we went ahead and we started dispositions. We blasted it out on Investor Lift, got quite a bit of interest on the property, and we assigned the deal for a $10,000 assignment fee. Pretty simple transaction, right? Nothing alarming at this point. No mention of an ex-wife, no mention of a deceased ex-wife or anything like that. Title commitment comes back, and it says this $45,000 property has an over $200,000 lien on it from the Department of Justice. So what happened is the seller that we were talking to was previously married, and his wife went to prison for embezzling money. And there was a $200,000 judgment lien that was placed on the property. It's like, okay, so he got divorced, I believe, because we kept referring to him as an ex-wife or her as an ex-wife. But she passed away in prison. So she dies. The judgment and the lien is still on the property. It was not removed. We're like, well, what's going to happen here? This property is never going to be worth over $200,000. How is the Department of Justice ever going to recoup this $200,000 judgment? Like, it just doesn't make sense. So we started calling, and when we started calling the Department of Justice, essentially what they told us is you need to talk to the judge who placed this judgment on this property. That's the only person that can remove this judgment from this property without it being paid in full. Okay. Who's the judge? So they tell us who the judge is. We start trying to contact this judge, get in touch with them. And then we find out that the judge who placed this $200,000 judgment lien on this property also died. We're like, what? I think that was the oh, that's fucking adorable moment where I'm like, okay, it was bad enough when the judgment came back. But if you wholesale any sort of volume, you know that you're going to run across deals that have judgments, that have liens, and sometimes at ridiculous numbers. So it's kind of commonplace. But then when it's like, all right, that person died who the judgment was actually against, and then the judge who filed the judgment, the lien on this property, also passed away. So then we have to start contacting the Department of Justice and saying, okay, well, you told us we had to go back to this judge, but this judge is also deceased, just like the person. So it's like, essentially every party to this whole judgment, this whole transaction here is dead. Well, what do you want us to do at this point? Because the seller, he needs to sell his property, and he can't sell it without this being removed or being paid in full, and it cannot be paid in full with this. So what are we going to do? So it actually took close to 6 weeks for like a decision to be made, how this was going to work. We worked closely with the title company. Like I went back, I think I saw this morning when I was doing the research on this just to refresh my memory. There was like 78 emails sent back and forth between us and the title company. And then there was another thread between us and the Department of Justice, just going back and forth, trying to decide what do you want to happen here? Like, someone needs to make a decision. Is it just that the property's just dead? Like nothing can happen to it. It's just going to sit there and rot away. I mean, what's going to happen? And so eventually the Department of Justice said, okay, we've appointed a new judge to determine what's going to happen here. So we got in touch with that judge. And essentially that judge said, hey, if we could come up with, I think it ended up being $26,000 paid against the judgment, then that would clear the lien on the property. So we told the seller, he wasn't necessarily happy about the fact that it was $26,000, but hey, that at least left him with, I think there was like $2,000 in back taxes plus 26, so 28,000. He walked away with like $17,000 from the deal, and we were able to get it successfully closed and make our $10,000. But over the course of this whole transaction, it probably took us 8 weeks from the time that we contracted the deal, or from the time that we bought the lead, contracted it, recon, dispo, and then a heavy load of transaction coordination, right? Like I said, 78 plus emails in the one, and then a whole nother thread with the Department of Justice back and forth. And then that's not even including the amount of time that was on the phone, talking to people, trying to track them down. If you've ever tried to deal with any government entity on the phone, you know that you're going to be on hold for a significant amount of time. So at the end of the day, was the transaction worth it for the $10,000? No, it wasn't. Definitely in comparison to other wholesale transactions that we do, because those transactions are so quick and smooth and seamless. But I will say it was a learning experience for us. And then also there's just the feel-good part of it where it's like, hey, this is what I talk about when I say wholesalers are problem solvers. We get deals across the finish line that other people cannot get across the finish line, and it's strictly due to our ability to solve problems. And I say it all the time that, you know, your payday is in direct or proportional to the amount of problems that you're able to solve. Do I think that we solved a bigger problem than a $10,000 payday? Probably. But I think also there's times where we go out and we do deals and we get a $20,000, $30,000 payday, and we definitely didn't do $20,000 and $30,000 worth of work. It all works out in the wash in the end. And listen, it's a story to be told, right? I think my emotions throughout this deal were peaks and valleys, right? You know, at first it was like, hey, this is exactly what we're looking for. Easy lead. That's why we do PPL. It's why we do inbound leads. We expect it to go pretty smooth, right? Hey, do you want to sell this property? Yep. How much? 45,000. Okay. Looks good. Send over the contract, get it signed, sell the deal in a couple of days. That's the power of investor lift. And then the next thing you know, we get bamboozled. Now, how can you avoid having to handle this yourself? Outsource transaction coordination, right? This is why we always say, hey, go to titaniumtc.com, hire a transaction coordinator like Easy REI Closings to handle this for you, because they're experts when it comes to dealing with these types of transactions, with these types of title issues. You know, for most people, this would have been like a deal killer, and it would just be like, Mr. Seller, I'm so sorry to hear about what's happened here, but, you know, we can't close on your property due to this unless you're willing to bring $155,000 to closing, which we know you're not. But because we had the ability to actually handle it on the transaction coordination side, we were able to get it to the closing table. So make sure you're outsourcing your TC. Don't try to do this yourself. learn from the best, learn from the experts that do this all day, every day. And yeah, let me know. What are some of your craziest title issues, judgment, lien issues? $200,000. That's one of the crazier ones I've seen. It's not the highest amount I've seen. It was just crazy in proportionate to the property value. And then also how it took place with her going to prison, dying in prison, the judge passing away. A lot of craziness with this one. So let me know in the comments some of your crazy judgment, lien issues. Make sure you like this video, and we'll see you guys next week on Oh, That's Fucking Adorable.